So I'm in a cult, and if you have an iPhone, you are too.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years. Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything.
What we have is something that I'm very unique about.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
One of the general themes of my childhood was that if it was cool, popular, or in style amongst kids my age, my mommy and daddy were generally against it. Which meant that the only time I ever played a video game was when I went to my cousin Lil D's house and my mother refused to give me a cell phone at all, choosing instead to lend me the most reliable cinder block of a phone ever to be made, the OG Nokia, on the rare occasion she let me go anywhere and I needed to reach her. So you can imagine how excited I was the day my Grammy got me a little black Motorola flip phone. Oh my God, I can remember exactly how special that phone felt to me and just how cool I felt turning it on for the first time, whipping it out amongst my friends, because it's a feeling I would go on to feel a few more times. When I bought my first Motorola Pebble, listen, it was white, it was matte, it had this slick glide to click open, and I loved the out of that phone. Y'all might not remember the Pebble, but just understand that at the time, the Pebble and the Razor was hot on the streets of the island I lived on. The Razor was really the hottest of the hot girls, but that also added to the specialness of my white Pebble, made me feel like I wasn't like the other girls. Now, I was growing up in the Bahamas, so I didn't have access to all the phones and things that I was seeing on my Super Sweet 16 and whatnot. I used to dream about the T-Mobile Sidekick, son. So much so that when I moved to America at 14 years old, I could not wait to get my hands on a cool ass phone. I just knew I was gonna get me a Sidekick. But remember, I told y'all, my parents were oppressors of tea and cool. The kind of oppressors who couldn't be stopped by me being in another country. So instead of the Sidekick I dreamed of, my mommy made me get a forgettable black rectangle for Metro PCS that I nevertheless vividly remember and did appreciate. But when I finally upgraded to my Green Palm Central, that's when I really fell in love. I loved that phone, and I was devastated when I eventually lost her in the snow in West Virginia because my dumbass self was so excited to see snow for the rest time I just ran outside and into the snow with no kind of game plan. I searched for that phone like a missing child but never found it, which is still wild because you'd think the phone would have at least turned up when the snow melted away so I could at least get the chance to say a proper goodbye to my girl, but you would be wrong.
Rest in peace, my granny, she got hit by a bazooka.
After my Palm Central, I had another forgettable but remembered black rectangle of a phone that was responsible for taking this shitty picture of me and Wiz Khalifa after I chased him down in a Pittsburgh airport. A story for another day. I had that raggedy but beloved phone until my sophomore year of college when I finally got my first iPhone, and I never looked back. I have been a slave to the Apple industrial complex since 2012. That's 14 years of iPhone after iPhone after iPhone after iPhone after iPhone. And here's my thing, it used to be nice. Oh my God, I remember my first iPhone vividly, and I loved that bitch. And I loved the next bitch after her too. Back in the beginning of time, there was so much Apple could see out on the horizon for what the iPhone could be. So much new shit left to discover and create. So when you would get a new iPhone, that bitch used to really be a different phone. There would be new shit about that phone that justified its existence and made you excited to get it. You used to be able to look at another iPhone and know they had a different model than you. But that changed. And it changed a long time ago. I'm not saying anything new or revolutionary when I say that Apple has been making the same phone again and again with minor changes. Not even always minor improvements. They up all the old iPhones in order to force you to have to keep buying the new ones. It's literally nothing new. I'm quite literally just repeating old news that's been determined in court. Truly, water is wet shit. But it's one thing that Apple charges $1,000+ for iPhones that stop running half as well within a couple of years of their release, which is a big ass one thing, mind you. But it's another thing that even if you were perfectly comfortable spending me money for a new iPhone every few years. You don't even get the joy of being excited to blow your money on a new phone because it's the same damn phone over and over again. Just the same thing, repeatedly, boring, monotonous. We are all walking around here with the same exact phone as one another that we all just keep buying again and again and again, whether we're excited about it or not. So I look around and I wonder, when and how did we get stuck in this sameness? What happened to the days when all my friends had a million different phones, different MP3 players, different headphones, because they were all parts of our personal style? They said something about who we were or what we were into. When my white Pebble and my green Palm Central felt so me. This is not about us just being trapped in the Apple industrial complex. It's bigger than that. Remember I told y'all that my parents stood as barriers between me and what was fun and cool growing up? Well, the one and only thing my mommy would let me have without restraint was books. My mommy would take me to the bookstore and let me pick out as many books as I wanted. And one of my favorite books growing up was The Giver by Lois Lowry. If you never read The Giver is about a seemingly perfect utopia, free from pain, conflict, or suffering. And they achieved this by embracing a world without color, without deep emotion, without choice. And in order to maintain the stability of that false world, the community erased humanity's collective memories, leaving only one person, the receiver of memory, the giver, to remember what was lost. I haven't read The Giver since I was in the 6th grade, but what's always stayed with me is how sameness was a problem. Proof of a dystopian world that needed correcting, whether everyone chose it or seemed to be content with it or not. I remember how even to my 6th grade brain, a world without color, without individuality, was obviously a bad one, even if I didn't know exactly why. The sameness, the uniformity we initially embraced and eventually submitted to with our iPhones, reflects a deeper problem that affects a lot more than what phones we carry in our pockets. And that's what I want to explore. How we got trapped in the Apple industrial complex is just one of several through lines we're going to follow to understand how technological revolutions that promised us comfort, convenience, and consistency gave us uniformity that reshaped how we consume and invest in art for the worse. But before we delve any deeper, let me tell you about this video's sponsor, Rosetta Stone Sapphire. Contrary to what me currently dragging Apple might lead you to believe, your girl is a fan of technology because one of its many benefits is that it helps us connect more deeply with the world instead of making everything feel flatter or more convenient for convenience's sake. That's part of why I was excited to work with Rosetta Stone Sapphire. The bigger reason is, fun fact about me, your girl is horrible at foreign languages. Horrible. Excellent at English, but absolutely horrible at anything else that could be considered a language. And notice I said considered a language because it's not just foreign languages I'm bad at. I can't do no math. I can't read music. Anything that offers you up, anything but the English alphabet to be able to communicate or understand what's going on, your girl can't do it. That side of my brain, dead. Quite literally, the foreign language requirements in schools stood in the way of me and academic perfection my entire academic career. My senior year of high school, I got into 11 colleges and still had to spin around and beg my boy, Senor Posada, to give me a C in Spanish so I could graduate if I agreed to go sit in the senior lounge instead of disrupting his class as I was doing with my stupidity. In undergrad, I got an A in every single class I took except Italian. And when I say except Italian, I mean, I was doing so bad in Italian that while my college was writing articles like this about me getting into every law school I applied to with multiple full scholarships, I was somewhere begging the Italian professor not to fail me so I could graduate. I say that to say, me and foreign languages do not go two-step. I need extra help, which is why Rosetta Stone Sapphire was amazing for me. What I like about Rosetta Stone Sapphire is that it isn't just throwing vocabulary words at you and telling you to memorize them. It teaches through immersion. So you're learning words in context the way we naturally learned our first language instead of constantly translating everything in your head. It also has pronunciation feedback with real native speakers, so you're actually practicing how to say things correctly instead of wondering if you've been butchering a word for 6 months. And one feature I think is really cool is the chat missions, where you actually practice using what you've learned in real life conversation scenarios instead of just answering flashcards forever. So if you're somebody who's traveling, trying to reconnect with your family's language, honestly, you just wanted to learn something new this year, it's a really solid way to stay consistent because the lessons are structured and built on each other instead of feeling random. And if you're using it on a desktop, there are even more ways to customize your learning with flashcards, conversation practice, and other study tools. Rosetta Stone Sapphire is now available here in the US. I've I've got my link down in the description and pinned in the comments. So if you've been wanting to learn a language or finally commit instead of saying one day every January, go check it out. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Rosetta Stone Sapphire. Now let's get back to the video. At the time of recording this video, I have an iPhone 15 that is on its last leg, despite the fact that I paid nearly $1,000 for it in just October of 2023. The phone has not made it 3 full years and is already operating like SpongeBob when he needed water. And this isn't just some bullshit. It's worse than some bullshit. It's the same old shit. The same shit Apple been doing since the first iPhone I ever got. As soon as they have another phone getting ready to come down the pipe, all of a sudden your shit don't work. This is something Apple was sued for, admitted to, and paid the price, but I would bet my actual life, okay, my life on it, that them are still doing it. When I was a kid, the understanding I had of my parents as consumers, as told to me by my daddy, was that my mother preferred to buy multiple items of a cheap product that wouldn't last long, and that my daddy preferred to buy one of those items that was more expensive but would last longer. I remember my daddy once drawing the comparison that my mother would prefer to buy a bunch of cheap slippers that would pop, whereas he'd buy one single quality shoe that would last. Now, to be clear, as an adult, I of course know that a lot of how we understand inexpensive things to be cheap in quality and expensive things to be higher in quality is propaganda and marketing designed to get us to blow money on expensive items and designer items and nonsense like that. Nevertheless, if I judge the validity of that concept based only on my father's spending habits, I would believe it, because today my daddy has everything he's ever purchased in my lifetime, and it's in pristine condition, a fact he takes great pride in. My point in bringing this up is that there are consumers like my daddy who are perfectly fine to spend the extra money on items they believe will last. They will accept expensive price tags in exchange for the promise of quality, and I used to believe that consumer was one of the best consumers you could get as a company with a product, rivaled only by the consumers who want products specifically because they're expensive or designer and thus able to serve as status symbols. But Apple managed to turn us into a different kind of consumer altogether. And when I say us, I mean the 60% of Americans who have an iPhone. And if we're talking ages 18 to 29, the 74% of Americans who have an iPhone. The majority of Americans use iPhones, compared to the only 25% of the rest of the world that has an iPhone, instead of the countless other phones most of us don't even consider because the prison cell that Apple's got us in don't got no windows to see Samsung or any other Androids with. Straight blinders, okay? Only eyes for Apple. Every few years, Apple looks us dead in our eyes and says, "We know you just finished paying the monthly installments on your last $1,000 iPhone your provider called a free upgrade, but it's time to buy another one." No, it hasn't changed much. No, this one won't last either. No, the price hasn't gone down. Actually, the price has gone up, but you're gonna buy it anyway. And you know what?
I'm a dirty boy.
We do it. We lay down and we buy the fucking phone, whether we like it or not. Actually, we not only lay down and let it happen to us, we expect it. We went from consumers who will accept paying for an expensive phone we believe will last, to consumers who will accept paying for the same expensive phone that doesn't last again and again. And I'll tell you why. FaceTime, iMessage, but most of all, social conditioning. It may sound like a joke or hyperbole to the rest of the majority Android using world, but I am being deadly serious when I say there is legitimately a stigma around having an Android. One that is best illustrated through the disgust anybody with an iPhone feels when they text a motherfucker to turn green. Oh my God. Drake literally has a song called Text Go Green as proof of this reality. And I can testify to this because I am the main who spent more than a decade carrying on like texting an Android phone is the equivalent of handing a bird a note and hoping for the best. If it don't say delivered, I can't swear for that. I feel like it feel like gambling but with messages. Was it delivered? Did it reach you? Your phone dead? You missed it? What's to say? I should y'all not. There was a time in my life where the only person with an Android I texted was the weed man. And even his personal phone was an iPhone, which I believe is how my brain began associating green text messages with burner phones that may or may not be sitting at the bottom of a dumpster. And I am not the only person in the iPhone cult that thinks like this, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a cult. Keep up. There isn't a soul with an iPhone that likes the sight of the text message bubble turning green after unknowingly trying to communicate one of the few people you know that has an Android and you didn't realize it. And whether folk consciously acknowledge or admit to this, it influences how much they communicate with those people. If you have an iPhone, you primarily communicate using iMessage and FaceTime, and that automatically creates this kind of club that anyone without an iPhone can't get in. Y'all know exactly how people react to a group chat where they thought everybody had an iPhone and one person with an Android turns the chat green. The iPhone's cultural dominance in America is owed in no small part to the classist perception of Androids and Android users. Researchers at the University of Chicago found that green text bubbles lower Android users' perceived social status, with Android users being viewed as less attractive and lower status than iPhone users. The researchers also found that 79% of Android users wanted Apple to eliminate the green bubble distinction, and interestingly, so did 66% of iPhone users, which suggests that even many Apple users recognize that there's a social stigma that the feature creates. That stigma is not just theoretical. Surveys have found that nearly 1 in 4 iPhone users say that an Android would be a dating deal breaker. Roughly the same percentage admit that they think less of someone when they see a green bubble. And more than half of Android users report being teased for their phones, with many saying that they've been excluded from group chats because they don't have an iPhone. I recently finally got sick of Apple's bullshit, enough to just finally consider switching to an Android phone. And for the first time since 2012, I actually started looking at and doing research on other phones. And y'all know what I discovered? The same shit the 5 in my life strong enough to have Androids have been saying for a million years. Oh my God. There are a million better phones doing way flyer, customizable, cool shit than my beloved iPhone. After watching a million videos, I went into T-Mobile to look at the iPhone 17 Pro Max in person to see if it would manage to do something for me in a way it wasn't doing anything for me as I did research on it at home. But I was underwhelmed as underwhelmed could be. Meanwhile, I went over to the Samsung table and I felt like I was in the Jetsons. Let me tell you something. If you have not paid attention to tech outside of the new iPhone for almost 15 years and you run up on a Samsung Fold or the new Motorola Razr in the wild, that shit will blow your mind. I was in there ready to risk it all. Risk it all, okay? But even after falling in all the love with all these Samsungs and finally conceding that Android was doing big shit and accepting that Apple had played me like the Tinder swindler for all these years, I still can't just leave Apple, whether I'm angry or not. Because listen, although I can let go of iMessage and I'm selfish enough to not care that the people who text me will be sickened by the green bubble they see on their end, your girl needs FaceTime, okay? I FaceTime my loved ones all damn day, many of whom are not my Bahamian friends and family that primarily use WhatsApp. I need to be able to FaceTime my people at the drop of a hat because that's the way we've been living our lives for forever and a day now. That's a part of our routine. My little sister Femi would literally riot if she were unable to FaceTime me at any moment of her choosing, which is part of the reason why so many people get an iPhone and why you can't stop buying iPhones no matter how fed up or bored you become with Apple once you've got one, because it leaves you unable to communicate with the rest of your friends and family. In other words, you can't leave the cult because everyone else you know and love is in it too, which is real because honestly, I have been a pretty unabashed, fervent Apple dick rider up until very recently. Red flag number 2, he had an Android cell phone. But I should be clear that although finally taking the plunge and looking at other phones confirmed the long ignored claims of my Android using friends that Androids were better in many technical senses and offered way more variety and features and customizations than Apple, it's not like I never believed them. I never doubted that I could do a bunch of things on an Android that I couldn't do on my iPhone, or that I could customize it to really be me. But despite quite literally growing up in the era of customization, I'm talking the era where teens learned a little coding to make their MySpace pages extra special, or to run message boards on their favorite boy groups. Apple got me to devalue that. Despite all the love that I had for my Palm Centro and my colorful Skull Candy headphones and all the other tech and accessories that I had to illustrate my personal style and vibe, Apple managed to get me and millions of people who grew up with the same appreciation for customization that I did to perceive the wide array of options Android phones offered, their cool little fonts and colors and special displays that made it possible for you to look at your friend's Android and see something unfamiliar as tacky or uncool or something. I knew my iPhone didn't let me do a bunch of funky different things people with Androids were doing with their phones, but I appreciated the ease of my iPhone, the consistency across all models, what I saw as a more minimalist but surefire design, not so dissimilarly from the people in The Giver who embrace sameness for stability and safety, unaware of what they were giving up. In many ways, the analogy that best illustrates what I'm trying to describe. Androids are old buildings and iPhones are new gentrified buildings in Brooklyn. And the thing with all buildings is, the good ones are gonna be so much richer in character and so much better than the new gentrified buildings. But some of them can be real ass, and you're gonna have to do some digging around to find the perfect building for you. But if you find that perfect old building, rich in character and maybe even rent stabilized, you're gonna stay there for a long time. Whereas the new gentrified building is gonna be new. It's gonna be gray and minimalist 9 out of 10, appear to be polished, and it's gonna be expensive and overpriced. And it will start having issues much sooner than anticipated because the quality of the build never matched the price or what it was trying to present itself as to you. But you don't really care because no one renting a new gentrified apartment in Brooklyn ever really plans to stay forever. They're gonna live there for 1 or 2 years, then move to another new gentrified apartment building in Brooklyn, just like the iPhone. And I knew that. Now, I might not have always known all of that. I learned that iPhones don't last and they intend us to replace them in a couple of years, the same way I learned that new gentrified buildings in Brooklyn aren't built to last because the landlords never intend their tenants stay a long time, from experience. But the reason you start to hate the new gentrified buildings isn't just because they don't last long or because they're overpriced. It's because as more and more of them start to pop up next to old buildings full of character, you get sick of seeing the same soulless gray box. That gentrified building and the aesthetic that comes with it invokes abhorrence and hatred from New Yorkers who recognize the sameness of these soulless boxes as not just an economic danger to the working class New Yorkers native to the neighborhoods that they pop up in, but also a threat to the spirit and energy of the city that never sleeps because it's brought to life by the variety of old, rich, meaningful designs of the buildings that populate it. But like I said, this phenomena goes way beyond iPhone versus Android phones. And the same was true for MacBooks and PCs, iPods and MP3 players. And I want to talk specifically about iPods and how we consume music, because Apple's introduction of the iPod killed the MP3 player, only for Apple to kill the iPod by absorbing it into the iPhone, which radically transformed the way that we consume music and invest in art. Before legal music streaming services made every song on earth available with a monthly subscription and a tap on your phone, music wasn't something you passively added to your library or consumed in the background. It was something you went out of your way specifically to partake in. We had to go out and buy CDs. And because you couldn't just instantly skip to 10 million other songs and artists, you listened to them CDs from front to back forever. I can tell you every single CD I've ever bought in my mother life because buying each of them was an event. The first CD I ever bought in my life was Maya's Fear of Flying. I was in grade 1 and I can still remember listening to it in my uncle's silver Ford Expedition because my auntie had the volume so loud, Case of the X was vibrating the car. The next CD I bought was Michael Jackson's last album, Invincible, because You Rock My World was my shit. In grade 2, I bought Aaliyah's last album and made a group of girls rehearse the choreography to Rock the Boat Under the Tree at lunchtime because I just knew we was gonna get it on 106 and Box somehow. In grade 9, I rushed through one of my final exams just so I could get to my Grammy quicker so she could take me to the mall at Marathon to go buy Lil Wayne's The Carter 3 from the jukebox the day it came out. I could literally do this all day. I tell y'all, I remember every single CD I've ever bought. Shoots! Not only can I tell you every CD I ever bought, I can tell you every CD my ma ever bought because you better believe we wore them out. Me and my sister was playing Celine Dion's greatest hits on the way to school every morning. And at home, we were running the Grammy nominees 2000 compilation album into the ground. Meanwhile, I could not definitively tell you what the last album I downloaded on Spotify was because the investment isn't there. And it's not just because we don't have to go out and buy CDs anymore. Even though artists and record labels obviously despise the emergence of programs like Napster and LimeWire because they took money out of their pockets from fans who could download their music for free, what it didn't take away was how invested those fans still were in those artists and their music. When I was a kid growing up in the mamas, there wasn't even no such thing as no Spotify or no Apple Music, not to my knowledge. And even if there had been, I ain't had no money for it. The way we did it was we had LimeWire and we would type our favorite artists into the search and we would download every file with their name in it and pray that when it finished downloading, it was a song and not Bill Clinton promising us he didn't have sexual relations with that woman. If you were too young to understand that reference, goddamn. But thank you to YouTube for finally recommending my videos to the youth. But we would comb through those results and download any and everything by the artist we liked. If the iMac that I had in high school could still turn on, y'all would be blown away by the thousands of Lil Wayne songs even that remember making that I had. We used to search for anything our faves touched and download their music that was so obscure it ain't on streaming services to this day. I used to really go on that piff and hot new hip hop and download mixtapes, okay? Real Gucci Mane fans remember downloading 1 million Gucci mixtapes and treating October 17th like a holiday. But the point is, we would go out of our way to get our faves music that we hadn't even heard about. We used to literally just search the internet for new music from them. And then we would go to the trouble of burning that music onto CDs or downloading them onto our MP3 players. Compare that to now, where we expect our faves to give us a promo run out this world and to find their way onto our algorithm or otherwise they're We do not invest in artists and their music the same way anymore. And I think intuitively, many of us know that, even if we haven't questioned why. But the answer to that why is because we traded investment for convenience. Programs like LimeWire were a problem because they allowed us to steal music for free. And our MP3 players allowed us to download that stolen music onto them. But to do all of this, it was still work. If you're gonna steal a motherfucker's music and then transfer it onto another apparatus, you give a f. And we loved our MP3 players. Until the iPod. Then slowly but surely, having an MP3 player instead of an iPod became evidence of being a brokey, the same way having an Android instead of an iPhone did. And the iPod is not the problem in this story, because like the CD player, the boombox, the cassette player, and the record players that came before it, it was a device for the sole purpose of listening to music. So when you used it, you were being intentional about wanting specifically to listen to your music. You were still investing in that experience and that relationship with the musical library you built. There was nothing else to do on those devices but listen to the music. But Apple sold us on the convenience of an iPhone that made an iPod redundant and unnecessary. Because what's the purpose of an iPod or a device made solely for listening to music when you could listen to music on the same device as your phone, where you can do a million other things besides giving your time and attention to the music you're listening to? So now, just about every phone doubles as a music library. So then they sold us on monthly subscription services that gave us access to all the music, which meant that we no longer went out and bought albums that we'd have to spend time with because we could only afford so many. We no longer scoured the internet for music from artists we enjoy. We no longer even own music. We have access to all the music, but we own none of it. According to the Recording Industry Association of America, streaming now accounts for roughly 82% of all recorded music revenue in the United States, with more than 106 million paid subscriptions. And about 42% of Americans have completely abandoned physical media altogether. And streaming didn't just come with access to all of the music we wanted. It came with algorithms that served us up what music they wanted us to listen to. So we no longer had to search for it. We went from people who downloaded unknown mixtapes and transferred them onto other devices to people who rely on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube Music, Pandora, whatever you use to serve us up music to listen to give us playlists. So we never have to put any effort into finding new music. But in turn, we're not attached to any of it, because it's passive. A recent study found that when Universal Music Group removed its catalog from TikTok, the streaming numbers for those songs fell, suggesting that platforms increasingly shape what people discover rather than people actively seeking it out. We're just scrolling mindlessly through algorithms that put stuff in front of us. And because we're not required to seek anything out, we don't. And all the music we would have cared about before is old news before the artists have even had an opportunity to shoot a music video. The irony and the paradox, however, is that while we are less invested in the work of artists and creators, we are more emotionally invested in their lives than ever before. And we not only demand constant access, we expect it. But that expectation that we be led into every aspect of their lives is not proof of our appreciation or cultural investment in their art, just our entitlement, which is a direct reflection of how our technological revolution reshaped our consumer habits to expect everything to be at our fingertips, so we can scroll forever, watching everything and retaining nothing. So of course albums don't stick around like they used to, because we as consumers don't invest in them anymore. But we put the onus on artists to make us. We expect them to sell us the album, to do a promo tour, to get on social media bearing their soul, to hop on challenges, to create content, to go viral, to share their lives, to constantly post and engage, to turn themselves into a brand and a product, just to get us to please maybe check out their new music that's literally already at our fingertips for free, but we can't be bothered. Unless it goes TikTok viral and we hear the chorus on loop a million times. And when the artists complain or fail to break through the noise, we beat them over the head for making excuses or not doing enough to capture our attention in an attention economy designed for nothing to hold.
Hi, I'm a multiple Grammy Award winning artist with multiple number ones and multiple platinum plaques, soon to be diamond plaque. If you are upcoming in this industry, you should watch this video. The music industry is in complete shambles right now, and you can use that to your advantage. Back in the day, the music industry was very algorithmic, as any other industry was, but that industry was controlled to a certain extent. Now that we are in the digital streaming age, there is no control over the algorithm, and it is stressing people the fuck out, myself included. Every major artist besides Beyonce has dropped music this year, or is planning to drop music this year, or has featured on somebody's record this year. I dropped a mixtape over the summer. I had SZA and Doja Cat on it, and I just dropped the deluxe to my mixtape today. And yet there are still people who don't even know I dropped music. Every major artist from Lady Gaga to Drake has dropped albums this year, and yet everyone is saying there's no song of the summer. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. It's not because the music isn't incredible. It's because the way that the algorithm is set up, no one can serve the masses anymore. This industry used to be based on serving the masses. Basically like servicing your song out to certain channels and certain radio stations. The internet space wasn't so congested. There was a clear channel back in the day for major artists to put their music out and serve the masses.
We don't own the music. It takes no effort to get the music, so we have no reason to get attached. So the music has no staying power. And as a result, neither do most of even the big artists.
No way to successfully promote an album where everyone knows your album is coming. Now, mind you, when I say everyone knows your album is coming, that doesn't mean whether they care or not that it's coming. Believe it or not, once upon a time, there were artists who were just the biggest on the planet who everyone knew their album was coming, whether they were going to buy it or not. It was ubiquitous. Where it bites me in the ass is I have a private page. I have a private page with over 280,000 people who follow me because they support me, because they love me. But even when I post on that page, I'm not hitting their algorithm. I have 280,000 people who want to buy my album, who want to see me on tour, and they're not even seeing my promotional videos. And I get accused of not promoting my album when I'm doing morning shows, podcasts, Netflix specials, dropping the packaging, dropping the cover, doing my part. And it's not just me, because virality does not equal album sales. There are people who are super viral whose albums just don't sell as much as their fame. Their albums don't match the amount of views they have on their posts. And listen, I'm gonna be okay. I'm a big girl. I'm a very successful woman. I have a loyal fan base.
And the same is true of television and movies today, and games and photography. The list goes on. We used to own CDs, we own DVDs, we own software, we own games, we own photos. Now Spotify licenses music, Netflix licenses movies, Adobe licenses software, games disappear, purchases get revoked, licenses expire, everything lives in the fucking cloud. Maybe the tech folk have already thought about this before, but have you thought about what we lost in going from having specialized devices to everything being collapsed and consolidated into the smartphone? Every single new smartphone boasts about how much better the new camera is than the last. And we all can't wait to get better phones with better cameras and more storage for holding the thousands of photos we're going to take. But I don't remember or even often revisit the countless photos I conveniently snap on my iPhone. Not the way I remember the pictures I took on my digital camera I packed in my purse to capture me and my friends outing that I'd upload in an album titled After the Evening on Facebook later that night when I got home, because there was an intention and investment in that. When your parents bought disposable pictures for the purpose of memorializing an event, filled up the camera roll, then took it to a photo place to develop the pictures and give them back to them in a pouch that signified that whatever was inside was proof of a memory. It stayed with you, emotionally and physically, because often those photos would be placed in a photo album marking the occasion, framed around the house, or distributed among relatives or loved ones who came by the house. Even once we moved beyond the disposable camera and onto digital cameras, we had to go out and specifically buy that camera for taking pictures. We had to choose to care about taking pictures and choose to take it with us. And then we had to manually upload the pictures that we took to our computer, at which point our friends would be waiting on MSN Messenger or AIM for us to send them their favorite pictures we took of them, and eventually untagging themselves from the worst one when we inevitably uploaded every single picture we took in a single outing to a Facebook album. Now, we snap tons of photos on our phones that mostly just stay there and accumulate, with the occasional best picture making it to Instagram. Technological revolutions promised us convenience, consistency, and access. In exchange, we gradually surrendered individuality, ownership, intentionality, and investment, not just in our devices, but in our relationships with art and culture. In the giver's dystopian world of sameness, the people didn't just surrender color and individuality, but memory itself, because just the memory of the world as it was enough to disrupt what the world had become. Maybe that's why all I've really been asking you to do this entire video is to remember. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, congratulations! You've officially wandered into the Olurinatti-verse. Now, before you get overwhelmed, let me explain where exactly you've landed, because apparently one YouTube channel was not enough for me. If you're looking for my biggest productions, the kinds of videos that require me to disappear into a cave for 6 weeks and emerge with an existential crisis, subscribe to Olurinatti, my flagship channel, where you'll find my magnum opuses like If Pretty is a Privilege, Ugly is a Curse, How This Didn't Age Well Destroyed Media Literacy, How Men Become Aziz Ansari, Why Serial Killers Aren't Monsters, and so much more. If you're here because you love television, movies, and hearing me explain why everybody misunderstood your favorite character, subscribe to Olurinatti Pop, my TV and film essay channel. That's where you'll find fun deep dives on How I Met Your Mother, Sex and the City, Desperate Housewives, You, Euphoria, Insecure, Girlfriends, and more. And if you'd like to watch my videos uncensored, get early access, and support the channel directly, just join the Olurinatti Pop Patreon. If you are looking for chaos and a good time, subscribe to Olay and Chill, where I unpack reality TV, TikTok drama, documentaries, chaos in internet, and whatever nonsense the internet has cooked up this week. If you'd like to watch me and some of my favorite Black creators and thinkers come together to discuss the culture, subscribe to Olay and Friends. If you're looking for shorter commentary on whatever the internet is currently spiraling about or whatever's on my mind, subscribe to Olurinatti Bites. If you want to watch me and my bitch Kenny JD laugh, overshare, talk a little shit, and unpack the messiness of life, love, and the internet, and whatever foolishness we watching, subscribe to Olay and Kenny. If politics is more your thing and where you know me from, subscribe to Olurinatti Politics for my State of the Union-like addresses on O Squared. And if music is your thing and you want to hear what I think about the latest albums and what I'm getting into, subscribe to Olurinatti Extras. Subscribe to whichever corners of the Olurinatti-verse speak to you, or subscribe to all of them and become a full-time resident. And while you're at it, you can follow me everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Twitter at Olurinatti. You can also follow Olurinatti Pop and Olay and Chill and Olay and Friends on social media so you never miss a thing. Welcome again to the Olurinatti-verse. Now go look around a little bit, make yourself at home. Y'all know your girl has merch, right? That's right, the Olurinatti-verse has merch so you can rep your favorite channel. Whether you're an Olurinatti Pop girl like myself, an Olay and Chill enthusiast like my baby sister, an Olay and Friends stan like all my friends, somebody who likes to scream with me on Olurinatti Bites, or somebody who locks in for a 2-hour Olurinatti production, we've got something for you. We've got mugs, shirts, and hats. It's all very cute because Cartoon Me is adorable. Shout out to Toonrific Tariq for being the man behind her. And to my pop watchers in particular, please know that you wore me down and I finally gave y'all a Shoot Me With Your Big Gun merch that y'all kept begging for. Look how cute your Shoot Me With Your Big Gun merch is. Oh my God, to be an Olurinatti Pop girly. But I genuinely love my merch, not just because it's mine, but because I ordered everything myself before showing it to y'all so I could make sure the quality was good, because I could not have y'all spending y'all hard-earned money on garbage, which is why I am pleased to report that I have a cupboard full of the most beautiful glossy mugs and a drawer full of the comfiest Olurinatti shirts. So if you've ever wanted to support the channel or rep your favorite corner of the Olurinatti-verse, or just walk around with my cartoon face on your chest like a true fan, check out out the merch store linked in the description below, or go to Olurinatti-shop.fourthwall.com to make sure you get your Olurinatti merch. Again, that's Olurinatti-shop.fourthwall.com, or click the link in the description below, or use the QR code on screen to run me your money today.